the cinema is headed to. Did you see Oscar's presentation? What do you think? Well, his presentation was very impressive. That's a concept that I liked very much. New techniques create new forms, but they do not guarantee them at the same time. They always require the artist to bring sense to them. Otherwise, technology is just a piece of metal or a piece of hardware. The origins of the cinema. When the cinema started, it was like a fanfare attraction, nothing more than that. And then we had many other artists coming to the scene who found their own language, their own way of doing things. At the beginning, the most ambitious thing that the cinema has was to be the silly brother of the theater, and then they found their own shape. So the cinema broke the time structure of the theater. How can you imagine the future of the cinema? The way I view the cinema today, without a doubt, the new production technologies, there are also new ways of consuming the cinema. The cinema is being recreated in full. But again, what is the audience after in the cinema? Just like in painting, in music, in literature, in the theater, they are looking for emotions. So in this sense, it's the artists that cause or do not cause the emotion, the artists who use these languages. Regarding virtual reality, for example, I was wearing these helmets. I was trying them on. When I was a kid, I would sit on row number 1 of the cinema. I would go to Gaumont movie theater. I would sit in row number 1 or 2, and that's because the fantasy with the cinema experience was immersion. That's what virtual reality is all about, immersion. Not only the results that we can see, but also how it's manufactured and filmed. It's kind of rudimentary, but it's only natural. It's the first steps. Where can this take us? Well, I don't know. I remember something that became in fashion in 2009, which was breaking or disrupting the stage. A house with 3 stories and a basement, and you would walk into the house looking at the different actors and following the actors. Depending on who you followed, you had a different view. Then you got together with your friends at the end, and then you built your own experience about the play. Well, virtual reality can enable in the future something like that, where the viewer is not only, or the audience is not only immersed, but can follow different ways. For the time being, it's the storyteller that guides you. You are immersed in the story. There isn't a framework. Oscar started talking about the theater. We didn't know where he was headed, and at the end, he ended up explaining it. If the camera is the audience, the possibility of taking part of it is in the environment. Based on what I see, I believe is that it enables you to be immersed in the action. If the 4 of us are talking, you can choose who to look at. If you're here or there or in the roof, on the floor. But it would be good for us to think in this environment, in this audiovisual district. While we are here, lots of other things are happening around us, and it would be nice for us to be able to pick and choose. If I look at Damián, Gustavo, Juan, Marcelo, or the audience, I can also see what's going on in the offices, in the bathrooms, so I can pick and choose where to step into. Does it have to do with the cinema, the way we've known it so far? No. But then, yes. Because I believe that humanity, man, has always needed these stories that take them out of the day-to-day things. From the Altamira caves to date, there have been 1,000 ways of doing this, and there will continue to be. It has always been the artists that have created these stories or these feelings, these sensations, because it's not necessarily stories. Poetry is not narrative. There is a type of cinema that is not narrative. I don't want to do all the talking, but well, we can continue. I can continue later on. Good afternoon. I was looking at Ravi's presentation, or Oscar's presentation. I hate him. I felt jealous. I didn't understand half of it. The first time we talked to each other, you gave me the headlines over the phone, and you mentioned virtual reality, and I said, what does this guy want? And then I changed my mind, because I don't have clear concepts, so I change my mind all the time. I get the feeling, and I agree with what Marcelo was saying, is that like there are different sets of opinions for a different type of entertainment. As from the creation of image, new things appear. Like amusement parks have nothing to do today with the former Ital Park, and then we will tell you what Ital Park means for the younger generations. I was at Disney, and I went to the Simpson game. Don't go there because I ended up being sick outside. It's virtual reality or immersion, and I don't know what it is. But technology is used to create a number of sensations that don't have anything to do with telling a story. It's a different type of thing. It's neither better nor worse. Telling stories, our job entails representing, recreating emotions. And as Marcelo was saying, from the origin of culture and of society, the human beings, I believe, have had a passive attitude, even though there have been many different ways of getting immersed in a cinema or literary narrative. There's something where you want to sit down and listen to a story. I don't know if you want to be if you want to take the leading role. I'm not against virtual reality by saying this. I believe that it is one more element. But since we were kids, we have liked being told a story, bedtime stories, imagining the stories, and leaving a portion that allows us to build our own ideas. Many of the things that you did, you yourself built the characters. And what do you think is the future of the cinema? Hello, everyone. Well, in principle, both virtual reality and the 1,000 things that we have been looking at over the past 2 days are nothing but technology emerging things. Next year, for Christmas, something new will arise. God knows what it will be. The cinema has been evolving since its beginnings. Change means crisis, crisis means change, and we will be like this forever. We, as directors, use the technique or technology to make the audience to move or to feel moved, for the audience to feel moved. Like with Oscar, for example. He's not a person who only showed technology, but there was an impotent contact with what he wanted to tell, and he found a way to be able to share that which was useful for him, to be able to tell what he wanted to tell. I believe that we always need to focus on that. You can make the experiment. Type the word movie director and read the definition on Wikipedia and read about all the things that we supposedly do. They direct actors, sometimes they get involved in the script, they choose the wardrobe, the lighting, but nowhere does it say that it tells a story or an audiovisual story, and that's actually our work. Our work is not to go on a set and talk to a technician, but it entails using a lot of links and technologies to convey that story. What I believe and I understand, which is the terrible part of these times, which is very chaotic and which happens to us through transmedia and virtual reality and everything that's coming soon, is just like the printing press reached the Industrial Revolution and there was disruption in human thinking. This technology will substantially change the lives of all of us, not just the lives of movie directors. Today is like Tarzan talking to Jane, me, monkey. We have involved in our language. Why? Because there is a new language that is being invented. And that's where we are right now. We need to start from scratch. Just like Griffith, on all the turn-of-the-century directors who invented cinema language. In the past, there was a guy with a camera, then they invented a lot of different techniques, and we have used all those techniques to tell a story. Today, it would seem that a movie director could be a great architect that invents a great story, who lives in many different places or in a single place, as was mentioned yesterday, but which is good for many things, like lots of different platforms that can be concentrated in a single device, which we call telephone, but we never use it as such. So what is a movie director? A guy who tells audiovisual stories. Where? Well, I can wear a helmet and tell you one. If we're going to tell stories using technologies, and if technologies are changing, the cinema was invented based on a finished technology. How should storytelling be taught at film schools? What should be taught to film students today? It's the same thing. One technology, evidently, the advance of technology enables you to be closer to storytelling. When color movies appeared or sound appeared, well, more progress was made. 3D, I don't like 3D in particular, but well, all these are elements that enable you to have less distance between the storyteller and the audience. There isn't noise in the image. The digital medium did away with all the scratches on the screen. So the perception and the story are more faithful to each other. And now we have one more element, virtual reality. Again, I don't know how close it will be to the cinema or to this fanfare, even though you may have it at home. But the important thing is to have someone that has something to tell. Then there will be someone else who will be able to manage it, or who will know how to manage it. Yes, the stories are the same. Go ahead. If we talk about technological advances in connection with the audiovisual industry or the cinema, I believe that today, being able to shoot movies with a cell phone, to me, is more interesting than virtual reality. And going back to film schools, and the question about film schools, by definition, they are reactive and reactionary, because in a way, they polish the student who comes with a lot of naive conceptions. They try to polish them and shape them in this mold that the school provides. So in a way, they are reactive to new technologies being just mimetic of what there is out there. So if you shoot a movie with a cell phone, it's absurd that you expect to do it with a Spielberg's 70mm camera. It enables you to do things that are impossible with the other device. So in that sense, I believe that the great technological revolution is the one that's killing the weight that the movie director carries when making a movie. And it approaches the cinema to the lightness of writing. A cell phone is like a pen now. And I believe that that is a technological revolution. In the 50s, there were movies that were more sensitive, with lighter cameras, and consequently, all the new cinemas appeared, like the Nouvelle Vague and many others. So the ways of storytelling changed, and that had an effect on the way stories were told and written by the mainstream cinema. Without a doubt, this incipient cinema, conceived totally from a different place, filmed in a different place, is going to end up having a big effect on the writing of films going forward and how films are consumed. People go to movie theaters much less than in the past. And that's why the way of telling the stories will change just as films are changing. What would the ideal school be? A school that is totally receptive to all the transformations going forward and trying not to shape the student, much on the contrary, to leverage their individuality, their potentiality. Thus, the new film schools should be absolutely on the alert, watching out for technological innovations. One of the interesting experiments or experiences that I'd like to share with you, and it has to do with the contest. 70 projects were submitted. A high percentage of these projects are projects of newly graduated film students or current film students. There were web documentaries, web series, and based on that, the analysis of the participation of the audience. So these students, and I saw that in their projects, they have assimilated platforms and they have submitted projects along these lines. They are attentive and they are utilizing these more democratized tools. And I like to bring up another topic, because virtual reality has invaded us with Oscar's, the force of Oscar's presence. There's something else that has to do with the future of the cinema, and it is the phenomenon of the on-demand series. What's going on in the industry regarding this, at least in the American industry? They have started to invest in a different way on-demand series, and people have started to consume this. Any thoughts? What thoughts do you have? Well, I think it's very positive, because material to be consumed continues to be created. In an ideal world, I would like to have more films in the cinema, and I would like to go to the cinema more often. But the reality is that we go to the movie theater less and less. The ability of perception is more and more taking place in our homes. And we tell stories, we create emotions, we continue to capture the audience. It's just a different way of perception. But the same values that as we had 30 or 40 years ago continue in the present. 10 years ago, and this is obvious what I'm going to say, if someone had said that the future of storytelling was going to be on TV, we would have seemed crazy, but today major directors and producers are on TV and not in the film industry. Series have great, fantastic narrative, which is unthinkable for the cinema. How the characters are developed is it's closer to the 19th century novel. So in that sense, you see different things today on TV series done in the Northern Hemisphere. I haven't found anything interesting being done in the Southern Hemisphere, but in the Northern Hemisphere, there are series that have an absolute risk, unthinkable risks. Things that are unthinkable to be done in the film industry that are done in the TV industry. When we talk about the cinema or the film industry, we talk about theatrical, the cinema as a social show where we go with our girlfriends or with our children. But series have grown a lot thanks to a technological change. Because otherwise, in the 70s, there were good series, but they were very limited because they were very expensive. Today, House of Cards is filmed. As a matter of fact, there are chapters made with a 5D. Some moments of this series. So technology has made it possible for David Fisher to make a series like that. And it has enabled us to watch it whenever we want and as many episodes as we want. So technology has helped the film discourse to be enabled for the audience, not just in a big area, but also through a TV or through a 40-inch TV at home, which gives you greater enjoyment. So it is like a misconception, like we have to get rid of this burden, like the cinema is a fixed place in a shopping mall. I don't see any differences. I think that the difference is a narrative format. I believe that that's where the difference lies. I don't think, in terms of the director that's going to tell a story in a movie or in a series of those, the narrative format is different, is changed. Is the director who writes a story different from the one who writes a novel? Well, the narrative formats are different only. It's not the TV that we used to have in the past, which was totally different from the cinema, but not today. For the director, the same elements and tools are used or handled, but the ways of building the narrative are different. Going back to the virtual reality discussion and this immersive feeling or sensation, my son came to me the other day and told me that he wanted GTA, which is a PlayStation game, and he told me what it was about, and I said no. And he insisted, and he said that a friend of his had it, and I asked him to bring it for a trial. And we played it at home. I played, and I got a copy. I went out and bought a copy for myself 10 minutes later. I didn't let him use it. I was afraid of what would happen to me if there was a power cut. I would have taken a gun to shoot someone, because that feeling, that sensation that you get is crazy. Does it have to do with the cinema? Yes, because I take the leading role in a story with the help of virtual reality and technology. Now I have sidetracked. You asked me about something else. I have forbidden that game. And now it's for sale, actually. Del Toro, Spielberg have been retained by the gaming industry, which has a turnover that's much greater than the film industry, for them to take part in that and to participate with their storytelling skills in those video games. Can you imagine that? Those games becoming interactive games with their input? I go as far as tic-tac-toe in connection with that. My relationship with the cinema, the movies I make, I feel they are very far from that universe, and I wouldn't know how to tackle it. I can understand Spielberg and Del Toro doing it. When I tell you that I can't picture myself doing that, it's just that I feel that I'm on a different planet. Just like there are other film guys whom I don't imagine doing that. Let me change the question a bit. One of the interesting things that we saw in Oscar's presentation is that he was saying that now the camera takes a leading role, is the star. Sorry, the viewer, I mean now. I cannot decide where the audience is looking at, but I can take part around him. There's someone, in this case, Oscar, who's directing and who's choosing. A director, at the end of the day, chooses, makes decisions, makes aesthetic decisions. So from that standpoint, it is thinkable, at least, I believe, that maybe they would dare undergo the experience of creating an environment. Yes, I believe so. You stop telling with a frame as a narrative element. I love frames. Not only do I like framing, but I like to look at frames. But you stop telling your story through that. I believe that's possible. The point is that, as Oscar was saying, you stop telling through ellipses, through cuts, and you stop using narrative tools that are key for me. I believe that the search is a different one. We try to connect this because these are images, but there's something that's more focused on the repetition of a goal on the PlayStation, with this multiple point of view, or watching a soccer game live, or going around the Tower of Pisa with virtual reality, which is valid and possible, which can be done today on a computer. You can walk around certain places with this technology, but the cinema is a different thing. I ask the audience to come along with me along a path, and I try to make them feel certain things at a certain time. I can be more effective or less effective in achieving this, but it doesn't have to do with the deployment of technology, but it has to do more with the senses. I don't quite agree. Well, it's okay. I find it okay. But I believe that technology always changes the way you tell stories. For example, when I had to direct Gaturro, from the start, we decided that it was going to be a 3D movie. So from the script, we started working with the outscreen and the depth of field. And the first thing we did was to realize there were lots of things that we couldn't do. I was quite rigid because of my training. I like to clip. It's like I'm talking about prehistory, but I'm talking about 2011. I spoke with the director of Monster vs. Alien, and they had run some tests, so the close-ups were useless. The takes had to be longer than 3 seconds, otherwise you didn't have a perception of what was going on. The approach had to be at a different speed. There were lots of limitations which we had to take into account at the time of writing the script. I did a short film for Fernet Branca. It was an interactive, where the chairs were robotic chairs. And when I filmed, I knew that if I moved the camera quickly, the viewer was going to feel emotional about that or excited. I would love to do a Walking Dead series and to tell them to wear the helmet where the two zombies start running. I don't know. It would be exciting to have the possibility of putting it in a narrative. I fully agree with Marcelo that each one has their own style and their own interest. but I believe that it could be a resource to create a lot of excitement, this virtual reality thing. I can't imagine having it for an hour and a half. But before that, you are saying that you have incorporated to your audiovisual narrative an armchair that vibrated. Well, as a director, you adapt to the circumstances. So when you were directing, you had a script that told you that there was a guy whose chair would move when they were in the movie theater. There are technological resources that will help you feel different sensations. You will be able to touch and feel colors and smells and have your seat move. Did you find it pleasant and interesting to have that new possibilities, those discourse possibilities? It was like a game for me at the time because it was a promotion for a product. The 3D experience was a different thing. We told a story, and we looked for a classical narrative curve with the climax and the turning point and all those things you do to make the audience feel touched or emotional. I have always liked to try things and to try new technologies. I don't know. When we did video match presentations, every year we had a new challenge. What shall we do? Okay, like the Rolling Stones this year. And next year we said, let's do something different. We always tried to use new software when there were new arrivals and things like that. Given a resource, we will always try to fully utilize it. But I believe that it has to do with a matter of market, because what about Oscar's short film? It's great, but where shall I see that? I will not download it. How will I see it? The only possibility is for me to go somewhere where the helmets are available, but the helmets will soon be available in your own homes. Yes, and you will be able to download it. Yes, it's a market issue. When the time comes for it to be available, once the companies will bet on a new technology, well, we will automatically need to fill it with content. I don't know what to give you for Christmas this year. Well, to some extent, let's think whether virtual reality will replace the whole film experience. When you go to the movie theater, you can go out, you go to a new play, in another place, you live the experience. If you go to the movie theater, it's because it's rewarding to leave your home, to go to the movie theater, then go have dinner. Virtual reality is an individual experience. Each one wears their own helmet. It's not a group experience. I don't remember what it was. It was Paula who said that interactive things are individual, because if I do something interactive with him, maybe he wants to take the content to a place that's not the one I want. So it's more like an individual experience. So we may risk to say that for the time being and for some time, they will coexist. But we can also manage that these film directors can be exported to virtual reality. Directors that are willing to try out innovation, to embrace innovation by learning new things and embrace this virtual reality world. They could, film directors could reinvent themselves into this virtual reality world. Yes, as Gustavo was saying, maybe you are telling a story traditionally, and then at some point you say, okay, put the helmet on, and then we pass on to something else. The future of things. Technology is moving us at such a fast pace. From what I know, virtual reality is in its early stages. It's very limiting what you can do. But what will the situation be like in 4 years' time? Without a doubt, if it grows technologically, if I find the artists who can express it, if I find the audience that will understand and enjoy this, yes, it will be a parallel way just like the cinema was relative to the theater or the TV relative to the cinema. These are coexisting forms. They nourish from each other because they learn from each other. The theater has taken stuff from the theater and vice versa. Literature has taken things, the TV has taken things from literature and vice versa. So before we pass on to the final talk by David Varela, we will open the Q&A session to the audience. Any questions? I have just a comment, a remark regarding theater, series, and virtual reality will be just one, a different logic, just like video games. They all tell stories. Now, your view, what's your view? Moving to these new technologies and working with these new technologies, these new ways of telling stories as support for the stories that you're already doing in the film industry. Just to anyone. I pass. As we were just saying a moment ago, right? I don't know if I understood your remark. How do you picture this going forward? How do you picture yourselves doing this? As we were just discussing with Damian, it depends on the taste of everyone, on the aesthetics of everyone. It is a very big leap, the change of point of view, and this creation of a much broader world where the audience takes over the narrative. We would need to change. Could be an interesting experience. We will see how it evolves. I don't know. The 3D images take up a lot of disk space. So I believe that this is, for the time being, is just for the big American players, for the big leagues. When it becomes more democratized, we will see how we can cooperate with this new way of doing things. Well, we are a bit short of time, so thank you very much for being here. Thank you for your nice vibes. Thank you very much.